The United States is a country where anything can change at any given moment, and where media and politics turn into a literal boxing ring due to both its global political weight and the complexity of its internal dynamics. In this context, the tension between mainstream media and political figures has been escalating in recent years. However, last night, a truly historic threshold in American television history was crossed. Donald Trump abruptly cut short his live interview on NBC News and walked out of the studio. There is no shortage of leaders worldwide who exhibit aggressive behavior toward the media. However, the number of presidential candidates in American history who have walked off the set of a deeply rooted national television network on live TV, throwing their microphone aside, is virtually non-existent. A sharp line of questioning by the NBC anchor, centered on Trump's direct election claims and ongoing legal battles, resulted in Trump withdrawing from the broadcast, stating, "This is not an interview, it is an open assassination attempt." You can see clips of those moments on the screen right now. The tension is clearly readable even through the cameras. This isn't just a situation involving a personal feud between two individuals. With this event, the polarization in America, the neutrality of the media, and the boundaries of politics have been reopened for intense debate. In fact, Trump's campaign manager released a statement immediately after the incident, saying, "We will not fall into the trap set by the Democratic media. The American people see the truth." To some, this move is a sign of weakness. To others, it is a deliberate and strategic step taken by Trump to consolidate his own voter base. The way Trump's tone of voice shifted within seconds in response to the anchor's questions, along with his body language, served as a state-of-the-art example of just how much mainstream media can back politicians into a corner. Naturally, this news resonated instantly across global media. European outlets are asking, is Trump fleeing the free press? While right-wing conservative channels are commenting, NBC's ratings trap backfired. To understand the core of this story, we actually need to go back a bit further. To the 2016 election cycle, Trump's first presidential candidacy and his subsequent victory were definitely not just a political shift. Because the conservative American wave that began during that period, labeling traditional media as fake news, showed the country a harsh reality. No matter how deeply rooted the institutions holding power are, if they lose the trust of their target audience, you can render those massive media empires useless in a single day through a Twitter or Truth Social account. Because of this, from the late 2010s onward, mainstream media launched what was essentially a corporate war against Trump and the movement he represents. For a long time, however, this strategy didn't really go beyond Trump getting crowds to boo the media at campaign rallies. The real breaking point came after the January 6th Capitol riot. The shutting down of Trump's social media accounts and the attempts by mainstream television networks to push him entirely out of the system forced the American right to the point of saying, "We must create our own media and our own alternative platforms." The establishment of Truth Social, along with the impact that independent podcasters and alternative platforms had first in America and then globally, were actually the first visible stepping stones toward the explosion that occurred in the NBC studio last night. Mainstream media, which had enjoyed a monopoly for decades, faced a period where they completely lost control and audiences shifted to alternative outlets for the first time. When we look at the statistics, the situation becomes even clearer. In the early 2000s, the combined evening news ratings of giants like NBC, CBS, and ABC reached tens of millions, whereas today, the viewership rates of traditional television channels have dropped dramatically. Conversely, the number of active digital projects and the reach of independent creators and alternative right-left platforms have grown exponentially. The total revenue generated by digital media has reached billions of dollars, and traditional media has completely lost its status as the sole source of information. Behind this leap lies not only technology, but also a deep political polarization. The criminal cases filed against Trump had already opened his role before the judiciary to debate. The media's handling of these cases, however, sharpened the feeling among voters that we can never trust the system. Leaders now want to address the public directly, aiming to eliminate the journalist barrier in between. In the end, we arrived at last night's studio walkout crisis. So, what are the public reactions and what arguments are flooding social media? The first question is this: did Trump walk out because he genuinely had no answers to the questions, or was it a justified protest against the anchor's biased attitude? This isn't an illogical question. We have seen scenes in the past where Trump deflected topics or presented manipulative arguments when pressed during interviews. These are real facts, even if they happen occasionally. Because of this, some people think Trump has no coherent story left to tell, which is why he fled the studio. Yes, there have been times in the past when Trump manipulated the press for his own narrative of victimhood, so questioning this latest move and recognizing the political shrewdness behind it is a completely valid approach. However, when looking at the full transcript of the interview and the manner in which the anchor directed the questions, I can tell you that there isn't a pure journalism success story here, contrary to what the liberal media claims. We don't have data proving that NBC conducted this interview with a completely objective, unbiased motivation that sought only the truth. Therefore, the claim of neutrality remains an ideal on paper for now, not a 100% verified operational reality on the ground. How can traditional media manipulate such interviews? By extending the duration of questioning, constantly interrupting the guest, or denying them the right to respond, you can transform a broadcast from an interview into a courtroom trial. Perhaps due to the current election climate, as you know, the political atmosphere in America is extremely tense right now. The parties have not yet been able to transition to a completely rational ground for debate, which is why these kinds of crises occur. Regardless, I really don't understand the purely hate-fueled comments like "Trump is finished, he fled out of fear," or vice versa. NBC consists entirely of secret agents, which do nothing but prevent us from understanding the essence of the matter. This is the original context of the issue. In addition, there are comments from the left liberal side stating, "Democracy is slipping away in the country. This man does not respect the free press." Yes, the erosion of American institutions, the deepening of polarization, and the stretching of democratic norms are realities happening right before our eyes. Pretending these don't exist and praising Trump's anti-media stance purely as a populist victory would not be credible anyway. However, presenting everything traditional media does as a sacred fortress of democracy or claiming that journalists are entirely blameless is not right either, because the hard data is right there. As mentioned earlier, the trust index of audiences toward mainstream media is at an all-time low. These figures mean that people are now tired of biased broadcasting, hidden agendas, and the condescending attitude of elites. So, when a politician challenges these networks, a large segment of the public does not view it as a blow dealt to the press, but rather as a firm stance by a leader defending them against the elites. How can we correctly analyze American politics without understanding this demographic? I also do not find this mindset correct. Yes, you may not support, or you might harshly criticize many aspects of Trump's or Biden's policies and rhetoric. But the mindset that the press is completely dead in America, this country is now a banana republic, is total nonsense. There are still thousands of people in this country who do their jobs with extreme professionalism, who can ask the toughest questions to both sides, and who fulfill the duties of investigative journalism properly. America's intellectual capital and institutional memory are not things that can be erased that easily. And superficial debates like this strike me as very odd. Conservatives say mainstream media is a propaganda tool completely captured by marginal left-wing groups, while liberals say Trump is the footsteps of fascism and his walking out of the studio is proof of it. Let's make the right criticisms. Agreed. I also think politicians use this structure of the media to its absolute limit for their own PR materials and victimhood narratives. But both of these radical mindsets are wrong in my view. Admitting that the media sometimes crosses the line and acts as a hit squad, while simultaneously stating that a politician walking out of a live broadcast is unacceptable, shouldn't be this difficult. Tomorrow or the day after, these elections will end. A new president will take office, or the current order will continue. But this media politics war will not end. Both the digital world and social media algorithms force us into this, and standing behind these tensions serves the interests of both sides to harvest ratings and power in a society where polarization runs this deep. Contrary to the radical rhetoric on both sides, I do not believe that the American public, and especially the independent voters who evaluate events rationally, are naive enough to swallow every media manipulation, nor are they uninformed enough to blindly follow populist rhetoric. I do not agree with the mindset of nothing will ever come of us. This system has completely collapsed. There is definitely a conspiracy theory behind everything. We will watch and see the developments together. That is all I have to say. What are your thoughts on this interview crisis? Let's meet in the comments. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.